Welcome back, everyone. Hope that you have had a nice experience with the mingles and that you've made at least 5 new valuable contacts. Otherwise, we'll be very disappointed. As a part of the first step towards becoming a game incubator, Sting, as we have talked about before, has launched test drive for games. Therefore, it will now be very exciting to listen to leading persons from the gaming industry and what they are thinking about the future for Stockholm and Sweden.
Yeah, and since we are fairly new to this game industry, with lots of experts here about that, we thought it would be very wise to have some knowledgeable person lead this session instead of ourselves. So therefore we have invited Per Strömbäck to lead this session. He's the official spokesperson for the games industry. And he is leading the Swedish game industry, which is an industry partnership organization for the whole industry. And Per has been in this industry for, I think, more than 20 years, Per. Welcome up.
Thank you, Per. What an intro. What a night. Hey, it's so great to be here at the Sting Day, folks. You ready for some games? Excellent, because this is a game panel game show. That's right. We're going to discuss some serious stuff in a very playful way. And I, ladies and gentlemen, will be your game show host, which is kind of a dream for me come true. I'm not sure this will be, Skavlan style. Maybe it's more, what's the guy with Jeopardy, the good-looking guy? Maybe I'm more like him, Pontus Gårdinger. I don't know. It's up to you to decide whether I'm Skavlan or Pontus. But I'd like to invite my players, the contenders, to join me, and let's see if we can pick a winner in this game panel game show. Who is the most insightful game industry leader in Sweden here at the Sting Day? So, first out, Carl Magnus, KM Truedsson, please. KM is the Vice President of Group Strategies at Electronic Arts. Also, their Stockholm office is known as DICE. You made a game recently which was a big hit on a big franchise called Battlefield. Yes, and a big international franchise that somebody else came up with.
Oh, Star Wars Battlefront.
Yeah, Star
that
Wars
small thing.
Battlefront. Yeah, that little thing. And like a real rock star, when you received awards last week for Star Wars Battlefront, you didn't pick them up yourself. You sent some goon to pick them up.
A proxy.
Please, take your pulse.
Thank you so much.
We'll be right with you. Next, Fredrik Wester, Paradox Entertainment. Owner and CEO of the hugely successful Paradox Entertainment. How much money did your company make last year?
We had a total gross revenue of 604 million SEK and a profit before taxes of 242. That's good.
And can we be a part of that success?
Of course you can. We're listing on Nasdaq First North exchange on a Tuesday next week. So first trading day.
Great. We'll be standing in line. Thanks, Fred. Please take your pult. And you make strategy games, by the way. So maybe the VP Group Strategies has some advice too. And next up, Maria Kärnlund, another industry veteran. And also you were my roommate or I was your roommate for what, 6 years, 7 years?
6 years.
6 years.
6 hard years.
Oh, yeah.
Rough
No,
years.
the best years of my life, I must say.
Probably mine too, I'm afraid.
And now you're an investor
Yes,
with
investor
8 Group.
in 8 Group.
Great, thanks. Great to have you. Please take your pult. Next up, pult. That's the official terminology for a quiz game show. Pult, yeah, podium. Next up, Alexander Bergendahl, the founder of CEO of Poppermost. And you make a winter sports game, and you told me the other day that hundreds of millions of people are interested in winter sports, but on average they only do their sports how many days per year?
So there's about 120 million people skiing and snowboarding every year, but they only spend about 3 days on the mountain.
3 days on the mountain. But with your game, you can play anytime, even when there's no snow.
Exactly.
And by the way, what's the name of the game?
Snow.
Oh, there you go. Alexander, please take your pult. And last but not least, Tommy Palm, founder and CEO of Resolution Games, the virtual reality sensation Resolution Games. You were also the man who brought another little game to a small audience of 500 million players globally, Candy Crush Saga. And you just announced your new VR game. What's the title of that?
Bait, a fishing game that we released 2 months ago. And last week we announced an upcoming title called Wonderglade.
Wonderglade, which is some, almost like today, carnival-themed game type arcade Tivoli playground.
That's
brilliant.
Description.
And would you know it, Tommy Palm is also the best dressed man in the games industry. I am probably the worst dressed man in the games industry because my pants ripped when I came in here. So if you think this is ugly, you don't want to see what's underneath. And we're in good company because I believe Maria Kärnlund is the best dressed woman in the games industry. Not that the competition is that hard for that title. All right, I'm ready. Panel, contestants, is that a word, Alexander? Contestants. I'll look to you as a native speaker. Contestants, are you ready?
Yes, we are.
Audience ready. All right. First question. Oh, that's not a question. Let the game begin. Do graphics really matter? Who wants it? KM, yes. Do graphics really matter?
I've been instructed I have to hold the button.
Yeah. Push
So
the
I'm
pult.
holding it. Depending on what kind of game and what platform and what kind of games you play, if you mean by graphics, really high-end, good-looking graphics, can that be good for your game? Absolutely. That's the kind of games that we focus on and we do. But that's just one subset of the games market. There's a lot of other games platforms where this might matter a little bit less. And as with all things, when it comes to graphics, unless you have a good gameplay mechanic underneath, it does not matter.
Any disagreement? Any other opinions?
We don't dare to disagree with him.
Right, no.
I think it's not just about disagreeing. I think users are getting more comfortable with graphics not being perfect all the time because it's getting so demanding to generate those graphics at a high resolution and high frames per second.
And I think all the data that we've come up with lately supports the theory that you reach more gamers with good graphics, but retention doesn't really matter, and that's what KM is saying, I think, as well. So, and retention is really what you're looking for first and foremost. So to reach the players, good graphics, but you still need the retention to actually be super profitable.
How about a little game called Minecraft, which is the biggest PC game of all time, I guess, or maybe Battlefield beat Minecraft. I'm not saying I don't like the visuals, but it's not necessarily a graphics triumph. Tommy.
I just wanted to add a little bit to the conversation. I think that we're in a very interesting state right now where we've seen graphics being one of the things that pushed video games a lot, but right now, it's only the hardcore gamers that really matters, whether it's on PlayStation 3 or PlayStation 4. Most normal people don't really see a difference on those systems.
All right, great. So first round, KM.
Oh, thank you.
Ready for the next question? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are games bigger than movies? Alexander.
Define bigger.
Yeah. Way more, make more money, take more people to make, have more of a culture influence. Pick one. And keep pushing your pult.
I was more just asking for the panel to have to
Right.
have a better
Yeah,
response.
Tommy.
I definitely think they are more interesting than movies, especially from a startup perspective and an entrepreneurial point of view. There is so much still to be discovered within games, and software is a huge field, and there is also interesting tie-ins in between. And virtual reality, that is a new cool field. We will see this influencing a lot of different education, all type of businesses, but in its core, it will be game technology. And so.
Personal opinion, but I think the movie and TV industry, which is great, by the way, I think they're desperately looking for not just the next new IP or something like that, but also the next new way for them to interact with their audience, not just a one-way communication, but a two-way. So in my experience, they are approaching the games industry because that is what we are really good at, interactivity and reaching out to our players and being much closer to them. So I think there will be a lot more collaboration between movies and games in the future.
And since you mentioned collaboration between movies and games, so is Star Wars bigger than Battlefield, but Star Wars Battlefront is bigger than both? Or how should we interpret that? What do you take away from your collaboration with Star Wars?
No comment.
That's useless. I'm going to say Star Wars a lot. All right. So second round is actually to Alexander. Are you ready for the next one?
Yes.
When will Half-Life 3 launch?
Can we get a raise of hands here who understands that reference?
All right,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's pretty good. Yeah. Any theory?
I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I think Valve probably, and hopefully there's no one from Valve here, have internal trouble focusing on things for very long periods of time, and that is one of the things they have had trouble with.
And what's the distraction then?
I think it is the crab head. Is it Meat Boy, the game? The crab head, yes. So a lot of characters from Half-Life was in Portal.
That's right.
So that's a teaser. And it's quite annoying to see all these PR people going around with Half-Life 3 T-shirts trying to annoy us, Half-Life players.
So they're building the hype long term.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's such a smart move. But what's keeping Steam from focusing on the next game?
Well, I think
Or
they
Valve,
have
I mean.
yeah,
Sorry, I
Valve.
kind of planted the answer I wanted
Yeah.
in that question. Slip of the mind.
Yeah, I think Steam is doing that. I think they have a very flat internal structure, and I think that where people can work on what they are interested in. So a game like Dota, which is one of the biggest online games right now, that had a huge amount of people working on it while they're developing it. But then once the game came out, a lot of people moved off it, and there's only a few people actually continuing developing it, even though it's such a big game. So I think there's no one saying like, now we're working on Half-Life 3 and we're assigning 100 people to it. It's sort of like, who's interested in working on Half-Life 3? And some people might be, but to make a game like that, especially one to follow up Half-Life 2, you need a proper focus.
And who on the panel wants to explain Steam to the audience? Just assuming that not everyone is familiar with this.
Steam is the Amazon for games, digital game distribution.
Right. So they're busy selling other people's games rather than working on their own. That should be a lesson to you all. Next question. Are we putting too many games out there?
I'll take it if you want.
Yeah, no, I can. I'll start. Well, I think with the recent launch of really powerful tools such as Unreal and Unity, it's much easier making great games today than it was 10 years ago. So we've seen a lot more games out in the market. We have a lot of interesting indie games. We also have a lot more players, which is great. So we both benefit from seeing a lot of games, but it's a very competitive market. So anyone starting a startup in this industry should definitely be aware of that.
Do you want to go ahead? Ladies first.
Maria.
I also think that one of the silver games for silver games in the industry, it is games for older people who have grown up with these games, and I think that is a huge marketplace for that. And I think we're going to see more games for silver games. Actually,
I want more bold games.
I think if you look at with games, if you look at movies and filmmaking, you saw in the 90s and early millennium with digital cameras and iMovie and the accessibility that you had to making movies. It only helped the industry because more people can make movies themselves. And now with, as Tommy said, with products like Unity and Unreal becoming free and easier to use, more people are making games. And it doesn't mean it's worse for the industry, it means that more people are creating interesting content and hopefully inspiring other people to do great things.
One of our biggest challenges, of course, is to find the right talent to continue building great games for the established companies. And the only way to do that is we have a healthy grassroots movement of people starting to make games because they're passionate about it. Because not everyone can go to an established company and start making games. So, no, I don't think there's too many games being released. The more, the merrier. If people are prepared for that, their first games might not actually be a hit. It might just be a learning experience.
You want them to fail so you can hire them.
You said that, not me.
All right, next one. And this one was for Tommy, by the way. Will majors buy all the Swedish games developers? Fredrik.
Was that me?
Yes.
No, they will not. And the reason for that is there's no reason to buy all the game developers in Sweden, so they will not. They will buy all the ones who have relevant IP, and since we're selling our companies way too cheap, it's a buyer's market out there for Swedish companies, because like if I had $3 billion, I would have bought Mojang and outbid Microsoft on the 2.5 that they had. But you never have $3 billion when you need it. That's one of my problems.
First world problems.
I know from hard experience. But are you saying Activision paid $5.9 billion for King? Is that too low?
From what I understand,
is there even that much money in the world?
From what I understand, it was a price earnings number of 6, which is way undervalued, I think, in the market, because King in this case kind of failed to tell people that they had more than one game, because I think it was the similarity in different names of the different games on the mobile platforms. King is a really well-run and really good company, and I think they were worth at least a double.
KM, your company was very early. I think you set the trend in. Well, you didn't buy the company, but you set the trend in overseas publishers acquiring Swedish developers. What's your experience? How has it been for DICE inside of EA?
Well, to start with, it was way too cheap as well. But let's not go there. It's so long ago. There's a big difference going from being a small independent developer and becoming something part of a bigger organization, of course. But in our case, it has come with a lot of positive. We would not be able to make the size of the games that we are today, or have made the investment in the technology platform that we have to get to where we are today. There's no way that we could have done that. And if we would have done it, it would have taken us much longer and increased the risk of doing it. So there's a lot of raw muscle power coming from being part of something like EA, but naturally it's a big organization, and that you lose a little bit of that, entrepreneuric, we just fix everything ourselves.
Yeah, and instead you get to make Star Wars games. Tommy.
Well, to be honest, I think that there's also a pretty good reason why price to earning is very low in the games industry. It is hard for companies to make more than one hit traditionally. So as an investor, it is advisable to be a bit cautious.
All right, yeah, that's good advice to all your investors, all you investors out there. I'm going. This is boring, so we take the next question. Is AAA dead?
No one else wanted to answer that question.
Do you guys want to go?
No.
Well, I have to hold it. No,
first tell us what AAA is, because somebody said batteries.
well, you can see it like that. Well, actually, it's debated what the term actually stands for. So I'm not actually sure, but AAA usually is the way of labeling the big games that are released across the entire world, global events, the big games basically. They cost the most and spend the most money on marketing dollars, etc. It's basically the kind of games that EA and DICE that we are focusing the most on, and it's an ongoing. To this point, I would call it almost a joke. This question, I think it's a joke, because it is, in a matter of way, there are a lot of trends that goes around that want to call various things trends, that they're going to die, or something that the dinosaurs are going to, suddenly the meteorite are going to hit us. However, what I will say is, like, if you have, and I think the number was by the end of 2015, last year, the entire market of games was something like $85 billion. Out of that, the AAA games is a pretty small part. And I think that's perhaps what people are talking about when it's dead. It's not the majority part that it was maybe 15 years ago or something like that. But why I'm sure that it's not dying is if you look at the platforms that are the most typical platforms to be related with AAA games, like the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, they are doing exceptionally well this generation. And we talk about generation because it's technology shifts from PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. The numbers are roughly, they're selling more, 50% more than what they did the last generation at the same amount of time after launch. But also, more importantly, the software sales on these platforms are up around 30% if you look at the end of 15 numbers. So it's doing really well, but it's a niche market. I think that's what is important. And for anyone here that is looking to invest or something like that, I guess this is the scariest place to start looking into building games and investing in it, because there's so much money that you need to invest upfront to even get close to releasing something. I can't tell you the exact numbers, of course, but it's just a gruesome amount of money to start doing this. So the cost of entry is extremely high, and there's been a pretty ruthless consolidation over the last years of making these kind of games and who can make them and publish them.
All right, so not really. Anyone who says yes to this answer?
No, I say no. I don't think AAA is dead. I don't think it's dying either. I just think that a lot of companies producing AAA games have outdated business models, which make return of investment very low compared to games like Dota or League of Legends, where you see that the scalability is of a totally different scope, because there's KM is into that as well, that there's a really high cost connected to AAA. So you haven't seen that many new IP being created for AAA games in the last 10 years. It's mostly sequels or based on movies or other licenses to carry the brand. So once again, retention. Ask for retention. If you're an investor, ask for retention and what is the retention driver behind the game, because that's more important than the actual engine or anything else running it.
Quite right.
One thing people usually talk about is, that this kind of games also represent the packaged goods. You go to a store and buy something. I don't know the last time you went to a store and bought a DVD or an actual CD or something like that. It feels a little bit outdated, right? But the AAA games and those platforms specifically are changing. It's slowly, but the estimation is like probably next year, the amount of money from digital revenue channels on the platforms from Sony and Microsoft is actually going to be more than the packaged goods. And I don't think that's a fact that many people either perhaps know or want to believe in. But there's a slow migration going here compared to the revolution that is happening with the pure PC-based games like Dota, etc., that are completely service-based.
Yeah. All right, this round to KM. Next. Do VCs understand the games industry?
Short answer is no.
The short answer for me is sometimes.
No.
Sometimes.
All right. So what is that? What is it that they miss?
I think a lot of investors miss actually one of the things we just talked about here: how to understand the retention key, how to understand what the driving forces for a good gameplay or cooperative multiplayer gameplay is. Actually, and I've seen a lot of failure in that perspective.
And I've been in some VC meetings, and most of them have been a waste of time, because they ask questions like, why aren't you doing like a World of Warcraft or something crazy like that? Because they're never asking for the business model behind the games. Because I have no idea. Maybe it's too obvious, or maybe it's just too confusing to talk about business models, but that's the most relevant question. The business model and the retention. I never get any of those two questions, which means that either people don't care, which is bad because it's a waste of time in the meeting, because that's what games is about, or it's a waste of people's time, the people who actually invest the money, or they just don't care about the money because it's so great to hang out with games industry people, and who can blame them? Look at this panel right here.
Amen to that.
Tommy.
Yeah, it comes back to this fact that games are very complex things in its core, and I'm not sure I fully understand the game industry, working 17 years with it now. So I think that there is VCs who are great at making games and have experts within game fields and have lived through a couple of game company boards and know more about it. But it's very hard, even from a product when you have all the facts there, to say if that's going to be a successful product or not.
And that's also because it's vastly creative product that you're building. And I think that's why people want to get involved, because they are creative. And like what Fredrik said, not talking about the business side of it, they're talking about the content, what their dreams are for games, and why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that, on the creative side. So it's sort of a double-edged sword.
And that's one of the reasons that we started investing in games. You remember, Per, when we did that in the early days, to get the VCs closer to the games industry creators and entrepreneurs in that, and trying to get the bridge to what do they need and what do they see when they get it. So that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, that's an event that we started with the trade association. It's going to come back on September 13th at Nasdaq Stock Exchange in Frihamnen. You're all welcome. There will be sandwiches and industry reports and data. And more panels, actually.
It's a great event.
Thank you.
I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I don't want to blow my own trumpet too much here. But I'll be hosting that myself. All right. Anyone else on VCs? No? Next. Are startups selling too cheaply to investors?
Fredrik, go.
Me?
I don't know if you regard King and Mojang as startups. Maybe Mojang was a startup, a $2.5 billion startup. Come on, Alexander. Are startups selling too cheaply?
I mean, I think we sort of talked about this, about price earning and stuff like that. I mean, it's a tough industry to have hits in, and not many people have repeated hits and understand how to do it. Going the pure content way makes it hard, because you need to rely on either sequels or coming up with novel ideas, or you have a platform like Paradox does, where they have a genre and have an audience and a niche. But it is a hard thing to invest in and to purchase. It's clearly they're not paying what they should be paying if you compare it to other industries.
Tommy.
What? Tommy? No?
Yeah, Tommy. I want Tommy. You have a startup and you have investors.
Yes.
Give us the truth.
Well, I think it's still. I complain now that's a very hard industry to invest in, but it makes sense to invest in it because there is a lot of revenue in this industry. You just have to be cautious on what horse to bet on.
Fredrik.
To me, the startup definition, first of all, is very hard to make. But to me, a startup is a company still looking for a business model and still looking for a success. I mean, you can't really call Mojang after 1.5 billion SEK, of which like 85% is profit before taxes, a startup anymore, right? Because they have a proven business model. They own probably the single most played game in the age group 7 to 12 worldwide, which is as big as Star Wars. So it's not a startup anymore. But generally, I think they're getting good price tags on their startup companies in Sweden, like the ones who are still not proving anything and doesn't even have a product to show for it. I think they're getting okay valuation.
All right. That's the perfect answer you want as a moderator. Yeah, it's okay, not too bad. Very lagom. Okay, next question.
Sorry about that.
When will a Swedish company make an acquisition abroad? This is for you, KM.
What?
You keep asking this question in board meetings.
Well, Starbreeze has been making acquisitions.
That's right. Good on you.
Did my homework.
Yeah.
They acquired a VR company from France, I believe. So there you have one already.
Yes.
There's your exact answer.
That's
Well,
perfect.
at
That's really
Paradox,
good.
at Paradox, we bought White Wolf Publishing
you
in
go.
October last
That's
year
right.
for $6 million in cash. So I think that counts as an acquisition.
All right.
Or,
So the
I
answer-
don't know the
No,
size
no,
you
you're
want.
right.
Like,
No,
the
the
$3
answer
billion
is-
acquisition is still, we're waiting for that for maybe next year or 2 years.
6 billion, 6 million, who cares? So the answer is it's already happening, right? But I think this round is for Alexander anyway, because good answer. Next one. Is hardware the real puppet master? Do we have to dance to the pipe of the evil hardware makers? Do they play the tunes you want to hear, Tommy Palm?
Well, I think that the games industry is getting more and more disconnected from the hardware. The games are going more living on its own merits and becoming a brand that spans multiple platforms. And players think of them as an alternate universe instead of something you play on your this and that console.
But at the same time, you have, if you're a bit successful, you can obviously invest across platforms. If you're not at that point yet, hardware can present you with challenges when devices in mobile go from one screen size to multiple screen sizes. You have to start supporting that retroactively. And with VR, there's becoming more devices out there. All have their quirks, different controllers. So it can still be a challenge, but I don't know if it's a full-on puppet master.
I mean, I think it's the race to the biggest ecosystem here, right? I mean, everyone wants to, well, in lack of a better term, own the customer and then know who they are and get closer to them. So things like owning the data of what they're actually doing in the games and these kind of things is actually perhaps in some cases becoming even more important than just making the first sale, etc. So as for a new developer, I think it comes down to, do you want to jump in bed with one partner, one of the hardware and ecosystem partners here, or do you want to have a little bit more of an open relationship with more of them? And it's actually a very strategic choice that you have to do early on in your development.
I agree with you, because also you can think that at the end user, we are playing the games are the puppet masters, because we are going to choose what kind of platform, platform free, or what in the swipe generation is taking over this. So maybe it's the wrong puppet master here.
That's very insightful. I think that's the wisest words that has been spoken on this panel this afternoon. So I'm going to give this round to Maria, actually. And that's all we have time for, right, Jill? Do you want to do one more? No? All right. And that's it. That's it.
Lights off.
What a professional ending. Yeah. What a panel! Great contestants. And I have been making notes, and we have a winner. And if you all light your pults, we'll do it game show style, and I'll turn off one after another, and then we have the winner. So, sorry, Fred, you're not the winner.
Oh.
Sorry, KM, you're not the winner. Sorry, Maria, you're not the winner. And it's down to Tommy and Alexander. Can we get a drum roll? And the winner is Alexander!
Thank you.
Good job. Good job. And that's it. Oh, we're getting, yes.
You should get presents.
Let's take the winner first. All he gets is his present before everyone else, so he has
That's all I
Here you
ask.
go.
more time to
you.
enjoy it.
Here you go.
Thank you.
A different team.
That's right.
Great product.
I hope that we have entertained you, educated you, and inspired you, and I hope to see you investing in games companies. Thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. And Per, thank you very much.
För join också. Tack så mycket.
Thank